First meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission to order. Let's go ahead and have our public announcement.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available on the counter in the lobby of this conference room. The Planning Commission's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning or subdivision application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the Commission may extend these times by a majority vote. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please write your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the lobby. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please sign in on that same sheet. The Planning Commission is interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available in the lobby. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct their own additional public hearings on these items.
Okay, thank you. On our agenda, we have no minutes for approval at this meeting. And let me just state up front that I had cataract surgery recently, and my eyes are really screwed up. And Ms. Miles volunteered that if I get something wrong, she'll correct me. So thank you.
Or Dale.
We're counting on you,
Well, I
Sam.
know Dale will, for sure. Okay, let's look at 2-1, which is 00026, final plat, West Kellogg Commercial Edition. Anybody on the commission wants to hear that one? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to hear that? Okay, we'll take that by consent. 2-2, which is 00034, one-step final plat, Hank's First Edition. Anybody on the commission like to hear that? Anybody in the audience wish to hear it? Okay, we'll take that by consent. 2-3 is 00036, one-step final plat, KW Florence Edition. Anybody on the commission would like to hear that? Anybody in the audience? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring those three to the commission for action.
Move. Second.
We had motion by John, second by Josh.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Our vacation items. Matt would like to make a comment before we start on 3-1.
Okay, I just wanted to point out a change in the staff report since subdivision. Per Public Works, when the original project to put Menards went in, there were 2 abandonments within the stormwater project, private project 20 or 2042, that were improperly abandoned. And Public Works is requesting that these 2 additional abandonments be brought up to current city standards, along with a certificate of sealing off the pipe at the south walls of manhole 6051-105 and 6051-103. I spoke with the applicant this morning on this project, Tyler Edwards from Menards, and walked him through what Public Works was requesting, and he had no issues with this. I do have Julianne here from Public Works if we have any more questions about this.
Okay. Anybody on the committee wish to hear this in more detail? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience wish to hear this in more detail? Okay, we'll take that by consent. Item 3-2, case number 00029, city vacation of platted drainage reserve. Anybody on the commission like to hear that? Anybody in the audience? Okay, we'll take that by consent. 3-3, 000-0030, city vacation of a 20-foot front easement, drainage easement. Anybody in the committee like to hear that? Anybody in the audience wish to hear it? Okay, we'll take that by consent. Item number 3-4, 00031, county vacation of a platted floodway reserve that is no longer located within the floodplain maps. Anybody in the committee like to hear that one? What, like this? Anybody in the audience like to hear it? Okay, seeing then, we'll bring the vacation back to the 4 vacation
Move that we
items.
approve items 3-1 through 3-4 by consent.
Green. Bob Dewell, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Our first public hearing will be case number CUP 2017-00040. Anybody really wish to hear that item? Anybody in the audience wish to speak on that item? Okay, seeing none, we can take that by consent. Case number 00034, and the CUP has been deferred until the 19th of October meeting. Okay. Case number zoning issue 2017-00036. A county zone change from single-family 20 to single-family 20, single-family to limited commercial, limited LC, limited commercial. Anybody want to hear that on the committee? Anybody in the audience wish to hear that item? Where? We will hear it, okay? But not right now. Item number 7, zoning case 2017-00037. It's a county zone change from single-family 20 to TF3, two-family residential. Anybody in the commission like to hear that one? Mr. Foster would, so we'll hear that. Okay, item number 8 is zone case 2017-00038, city zone change from limited industrial to central business district. That's on the east side of North Oak Street, approximately 200 feet north of West Douglas Avenue. Anybody in committee like to hear that one?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be abstaining from item number 8.
Okay. Anybody in the audience like to hear case number 8 on our agenda? Okay, we can take that by consent. We're going to hear number 7. All right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Do I have a motion for, well, I'll let whoever's making the motion say which ones.
Move to approve case number 4, number 8, and defer number 5.
Second.
We need to take them one at a time.
Okay.
Which one did,
I'll take to
wait a minute, which one
case
did,
number
Dave, did you
4,
want?
CUP 2017-00040 by consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Move to defer case number 5 to a date to be determined,
Second.
October 19th.
to the 19th. Okay, to the 19th.
Second.
Okay, second it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Move to by consent, approve case number 8.
Second.
Which one was the one you abstained?
Number
from?
8.
Okay. So Mr. Foster will be abstaining. Any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And we have a presentation of item number 6. That's right. Before you do that, let's make sure we have the count on these. On number 4, we had unanimous, right? Is it 12? 12-0? And also 12-0 on 5 to defer. And then we had 11-0-1 on 8.
That's correct. That's what we recorded.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, Kyle Kobe, Associate Planner. This is Zone 2017-36. It's a county case to change the zoning from SF20 Single Family to LC Limited Commercial on 5.97 acres. It's located at the northwest intersection of West 31st Street South and South 119th Street West. The applicant is proposing to rezone this to commercial use to expand the available uses on the site and to make the property more marketable as well. Here's an aerial view of the parcel. So this is a part of a larger parcel that they're just proposing to rezone this portion of it. Here's the future growth concept map. As you can see, this color here is new residential. This is new employment, and then a mix of the two here in the hatched area. Here's just another aerial, just to kind of orient the city centers right here and the airport's right here. And here's Kellogg. So here's at this intersection right here, looking east, down 31st Street. And this is looking north up 119th, south down 119th. This is west on 31st. So this is the northeast corner of the site opposite 119th. Here's the site looking directly into it from the intersection. So it would be roughly right about here in just in the immediate vicinity. It's the southeast, so this would the opposite corner of that intersection. And then southwest, which is to the southern part, southern side of 31st Street. Any questions?
Questions of the presenter? Okay. We have the applicant. Petition.
Will Clevenger with Ruggles and Bohm on behalf of the applicant. We're in agreement with staff comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for the applicant? Seeing none, let's have the, whoever in the audience would like to speak first, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Sheridan, and I'm a resident at 12340 West 34th Court South, Wichita 67227. And I don't know if you can show the aerial view for me. I came here today I do have one question. I know within the agenda it says there, no, go on downward, that one. It said it could be a park, a church, something of that extent that could go in there if it was rezoned. But I've also talked to the county and I know they said it could be anything, a convenience store, mall, or a garage of some type for auto repair. My concern is most of us that have moved into this area, we are in mid $300,000 to $400,000 houses on acre lots. And most of us realize that at some point this will be probably developed, but we also know that it's single family housing at this point. And our concern is having that commercial coming in. I realize it's also to make it more attractive. But once that's rezoned, then those of us that live here don't really have a say at that point. And I want to point out to the area, if you don't mind, of where we are at.
Ma'am, please use the
Yeah, I was just going to point it. Oh,
use the mouse.
thank you. Sorry. Right here is Redmond Estates, and although it looks like nothing is there, that currently houses approximately 50 houses. In phase 2 and 3, which is this section here and this here, it was just recently blacktopped. We finished that process. We're actually finishing it now. There's 32 lots just in phase 2 and phase 3 that have all sold. Only 2 of them have not started construction. So this area here does have 50 homeowners in it, and then this also is a full development here. My house currently sits right here that faces this field on the south end and looks directly at the plat in question. And that's the same for all of these neighbors here. They're going to be looking directly there. Our biggest concern is that at some point that's going to become a parking lot with lots. I know there's rumors of the other side of the street that UPS has already bought that property. I can't confirm those. I'm going to work on that next. But our biggest concern is that's going to become a parking lot or another business. That's a 2-lane road that's already 60 miles an hour, and if you're going to add trucks and such to that, it's just for the record that we highly recommend that that is not rezoned to commercial and keep it as a single-family household plot. Any questions?
David?
Ms. Sheridan, I don't know if you noticed in the staff report, but it does state in condition number 1, the development plan, when it's developed, it will include permitted uses. And it's at that point when some of the concerns you mentioned, which I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I had a question too for staff as to when should those permitted uses be discussed. Oftentimes, we will make those decisions at this point in time. And so I think that would put this on to the discretion of staff with no discussion from the Planning Commission to address the permitted uses. So I think you've raised a very good question. But I just wanted to point that out to you, that the permitted uses have not been settled for that parcel.
Right, and actually that was my bigger concern, is that it hadn't been settled, and so if it was sold and it hadn't been settled, that the person buying it would then come in, and at that point, it's been sold and rezoned, and I did not know if at that point, if we have any say or any type of format that we can express those concerns after the fact. If it's been rezoned and then sold to a new person, are they able just to put what they may on that plot? So that was my concern and why we wanted to bring that up to the committee now before we even got to that point.
And I don't know if staff wants to address that now or wait till after rebuttal, and we can bring it back for discussion.
The conditions of the protective overlay actually do require that there be a development plan, subsequent development plan approved not by staff but by the Planning Commission. So there will be another public hearing on this property before it's developed.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience wish to speak on this subject? Okay, the applicant has a chance for rebuttal. 3 minutes, is that right? Or 2? 2 minutes.
Will Clevenger with Ruggles and Bohm on behalf of the applicant. Yes, we would propose that the uses and limitations thereof be addressed at the CUP. And then, of course, also plating will also be a requirement down the road once it's known what's desired for this property.
Any questions? Oh,
Just a comment here, mainly pointed at Ms. Sheridan, is that one of the experiences we have here is that in some ways it's better to have this zone before you get a lot of residential uses. We've had a lot of cases where people built homes and didn't realize they were building next to commercial uses. This is going to be way out front, and the surrounding property is owned by the same person. So it will be, if there's a detriment to this, it really will be to the property owner as opposed to perhaps other people. So in some ways, I think getting out in front of this is better than later because it doesn't surprise single-family homeowners. Sometimes they didn't realize what was going to happen in those situations. So,
could you outline the subject property, please? Just in that. No, I would like to see it on the overhead there. With the houses.
Aerial?
With the aerial, yes.
This one right here.
Right.
The north would be up here in this area, so the property would be in a box shape right here.
No. On the south side of the road?
On the north side of the road.
Northwest corner.
North would be up at this direction of the map.
Oh,
So it'd be
okay.
running south. This would be east and west, and we're here on the northwest corner of the intersection.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, please.
I think it would be helpful if we could have north arrows on these maps when they're presented to us, not only in the packets, but also on the overhead.
Staff, please see if they can accommodate that in the
Because
future.
I had a hard time
Yeah.
with that also, Joe, trying to orient myself on that.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, I'll bring the discussion back to the commission.
Move we approve.
Second?
Motion by Mike Green, second by, who seconded it?
Warren.
Chuck Warren, okay. Thank you. I thought it was your voice.
Get those glasses out there.
I can see that. I just want to make sure it was you that said it. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Passes 12-0. Okay, item number 7.
Kathy Morgan, Senior Planner. This is a zoning, request for a zoning change from SF20 Single Family to TF3. This is currently in the county. There has been, and it's in your packet, there has been a plat submitted. I'm not sure exactly where that is in the process of being approved, and it will be, the property is scheduled to be annexed into the city. I've had several telephone calls about this, about the property. To the west of it is a single-family subdivision that is located within the city. To the east of it is a manufactured home park that's condominiumized. And to the north, we have large lot county SF20. And here you can see the aerial. Of course, this is north. The site is south of 47th Street and west of Meridian. and it is within a new residential growth urban area for the city of Wichita. As I said, you have in your packet the plat. And if you will notice, some of the current concerns that I have received by phone is that drainage. And we know that the drainage has been answered in the platting process. And I just wanted to point out to you that there is about a 3.5 acre reserve that is just comes across 50th Street from the single-family subdivision on the west side, just so that you can see that they have a platted reserve, and you can also see where some of the drainage is. I've also provided a copy of where the flood area is, and this is the area right in here where that reserve is on the plat that you have. This is looking east along 47th Street. The subject property is to the south of 47th Street. And then looking southeast at the site, and you can see back here where some of that floodplain, well, not floodplain, where some of the concerns are with potential water standing or flooding. This is looking south along the west property line, and here is that single-family neighborhood on the west. Here's another. You can see it goes back quite a ways. This is north, looking north from the side. As I said, this single-family residential sits well back north of 47th Street. This is looking northeast from the site. And this is looking west along 47th Street. And this is the entrance into that single-family subdivision. Staff recommends that this is an appropriate use zoning request for this property as it does, and I'm going to go back to the zoning map. It does provide a buffer between the single-family residential and the manufactured home park, and it meets the future growth concept of our 2035 community investment plan, and I'll answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Lowell?
Kathy, we have, correct me if I'm wrong here, we have approved the preliminary plat, but not a final plat. Is that, am I correct?
That's my understanding, yes. It's the Fox Run edition, and the agent is here and can answer where that is in the platting process.
Because part of this question, I think, revolves around traffic and those kinds of things. So the plat has not been finalized as of now, as I recall, and they were going to finalize pieces of it as it was ready to be developed. So, yeah, we'll talk to the agent, but I just want to clarify that, make sure that everybody understood it was, the plat had not been finalized yet.
Right.
Any questions for the staff? Mr. McKay?
Isn't there another subdivision called Fox Run out northwest? Is that Fox Point, Fox Ridge? I thought it was Foxes.
Bunch of wild foxes out there.
Any other questions? Mr. Blick?
So based off the map, what I'm looking at is 50th Street is going to be a connecting in between the two additions?
This 50th Street, and that's what's showing on the plat. Let me go to the aerial. This is 50th Street right here.
Right now, it dead ends.
It dead ends into that property, but it does indicate that there's a, let's go to the plat. Right here is where 50th Street is. This is your, this is the single-family subdivision. This is a 20-foot wide drainage easement, and here is 50th Street, and it's showing that it goes into the new TF3 zoned area, and it doesn't go on through over to the manufactured housing.
I was studying, I apologize. Did you say earlier something about a buffer, a natural buffer that was on each side, the east and the west?
No, I think what I was mentioning was the fact that two-family residential would provide a buffer between the single-family residential existing and the manufactured home existing. There is some, and I don't know what's going to be able to be left there, but there is some natural vegetation out there that follows the drainage on the site.
I was just clarifying with 50th and if there was a buffer or not.
Right. That's okay.
Other questions for staff? Seeing none, applicant?
Kirk Miller, K.E. Miller Engineering. I'm the agent for the applicant. The applicant is here if you have questions or the owner is here if you have questions for him. Well, we're asking for duplex zoning. We realize that this whole thing won't be duplex. I mean, there's not that much of a demand for something of this size to be totally duplex. And our intent is not to have it all duplex either, but we want to have the option. The duplexes would most likely be on the east side of the property backing up to the mobile home park because that's your natural buffer. People don't want their single family backing up to mobile home park, but you can get by with some rentals backing up to mobile home park. Then you'll want to kind of group your duplexes together because you don't want to scatter them out all over the place. So what we're looking at is mainly the duplexes being on the east side of the property. But depending on how the market goes, it's kind of hard to say, this many lots or this area and really narrow down something like that. So you're allowed to have single family within duplex zoning. So we're just asking for duplex on the whole thing, knowing that we may have some duplex where the goal is as much single family as we can get. We're probably looking at about $130,000 price point for the single family housing. Duplexes are going to be, if we were to sell the duplex, it'd be somewhere along the same price point. So I'm not sure exactly what that would rent at, but they're not going to be cheap duplexes. They'll be appropriate for the neighborhood. There is some floodplain on the property, as Kathy pointed out, and that will be addressed as part of the project, removing that from the floodplain. The reserve down there is for drainage purposes and open space. Be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for the applicant? Seeing none, Mr. Warren.
Kirk, you don't have there's not a drawing out. I mean, I've got a drawing but this was a preliminary problem, just kind of an outline of what may be coming.
It was the preliminary plat for the whole thing. We will break out into phases the final plats.
Do you remember, what I've got here is hard for me to read when I printed it out. Approximately how many lots were you planning in that area? Ballpark figure, I don't need an exact number.
64? There were more than that. It was
123.
123, okay, good.
123 lots. And there, the way that it's set up now, the lots would be approximately the same, whether it be a duplex or a single family?
Approximately the same width lot and depth, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, do we have anyone from the audience that'd like to speak on this? Okay, who wants to go first?
My name is Christine Pruitt, and I own a property at 5202 South Mount Carmel. I don't live in that property. I bought that property for my daughter and my grandchildren. My 6-year-old granddaughter is autistic. Adding multiple rentals into an adjoining property creates a massive safety issue for her to be able to continue to play outside. We bought that property knowing it was safe and secure from a massive amount of rentals. There is currently, within a mile of this property, duplexes. Those duplexes have reduced the property value in Angel Fire Edition. Those properties do not sell, and when they sell for much less than the county value. That will happen to our properties. Our properties right now are selling for about the county value or above. People don't want to live near duplexes. They recently just built a huge duplex addition at 55th and Seneca. We've watched those houses go up. We watch what's happening in that neighborhood. We watch the traffic. We know what's going to happen. This is 38 acres of property that you're going to give the right to them to put duplexes in every one of those plats. That's not right, and that's not fair to us as property owners, that our standard of living is going to go down because somebody wants to put in rental properties next door to us. That street right now dead ends, but it is created to adjoin the property next to us. Right now, we have a tree line that separates us from that mobile home addition. I call it an addition because when I think of a mobile home park, I think of the ones that are next door to each other so that there's like 3 of them that fit into a standard city lot. These mobile homes sit on acre lots. These people live there long term. It's not a transient neighborhood. You're trying to turn us into a transient neighborhood, and me and my neighbors don't want it. We want to continue our established, safe neighborhood. Right now, there is one entrance to that addition and there is one exit. So by the time they get to my property, they damn well better have a reason to be there. We end up calling the police when we have cars down there that we don't know who they are because they don't have any business down there. If they don't have a business down there, we want them out. And with single family properties over there, we're not going to have that kind of transient neighborhood. We're not going to have to worry about additional crime in our neighborhood because those people are buying properties to live there long term. I'm done. Nope, I'm done.
My name's Curtis DeWitt, and I live at 5114 South Custer, the one facing the east where they're going to build this. I have to agree with what she says. We know pretty much whoever comes in our neighborhood, and if you're hooking up with duplexes, and if you give them the right to build one duplex, it's not going to stop them from building every duplex in every lot. It's going to lower our property value, and I just can't see it. You know, they're buying up, she said 55th, they're down the street. They're on 63rd Street too. And now they're wanting to build across the street from 63rd Street. That's all that's popping up out here in the south end of town, duplexes. How about single family homes? We need to leave it at single family homes.
Thank you. Next, sir.
My name is Randy Lubers. I live at 5126 South Custard, which is look down towards the south end of the plot there. The visual that you had showing the drainage ditch south from 47th Street is virtually kind of just a little bit of a ditch. You get down by my house, I have a walkout or a view out basement. I can stand on my deck coming out of the house, and that property is level with my deck. So there's a 5-foot bank going up onto the property that they're wanting to develop, but there is only about 1.5 foot grade going up to the back of my house. Just last year, FEMA put us in a flood zone. We had to get flood insurance. My big issue is if you're going to develop the area, whatever you decide to put in there, that drainage ditch needs to be addressed. Otherwise, you're going to flood me out. Curtis is in the same boat. He lives 3 houses down from me. Everybody towards the south end of that, where that ditch goes deep, is going to be in trouble. And that would be from 50th Street south is where it goes deep. And that's my big concern.
Thank you, sir.
I do have pictures, but I didn't read the letter enough. I would have got them to you, but I do have them on my phone after the meeting if somebody would like to see them. I've got water that shows about 1.5 to 2 foot coming in my back window from a year and a half ago when it rained real hard. So my concern is that. Thank you.
Hello? I said we have someone from Stormwater who's going to speak to that after we hear all the input from the public. David?
That's my specific question for staff. I have some questions on that item. Thank you.
Okay. Next person, please.
Have a mouse.
State your name and address, please.
Karen Kurtz, 6214 West Driftwood, Wichita.
Thank you.
Oh, right here, okay. Okay, currently, we're not planning on having multiple duplexes. It's mainly going to be in this area and possibly a couple other ones, but mainly it's going to be all single-family homes. Right here, if the concern is this road coming through and the traffic, we can actually cut that off. If you want to just block it off, we can do that. Okay with that.
Wait. Are you the applicant?
We're the owners, yeah.
Yeah.
That's mine.
I guess we can give you time that wasn't used. I think I'd rather have you wait until rebuttal.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Anybody else who wants to speak? Seeing no one else, who? Kelly, yeah. Kelly Dixon, would you please come to the podium?
Good afternoon, Kelly Dixon, Metropolitan Area Building and Construction. You have questions?
David?
I think this is kind of and I appreciate the gentleman here bringing up the flooding issue, and I can certainly appreciate your pictures. Basic question I have relative to that is this a failing of the original drainage procedure relative to that plat? And what would be the process to make corrections to that? Because I'm sure there were requirements in place, but how do we get this corrected?
23.
Well, let me say, first off, my specific duties towards this are involving just the floodplain. I did talk with Joe Hickle, the city of Wichita, who has looked at the drainage plan submitted by the engineer for the plat, and it has been approved. The detention pond that they have set up is designed to handle any and all of the flows additional to the plat itself. I mean, that is a requirement of the law, is that they take all that water and put it into that pond. So there shouldn't be any additional drainage problems off-site based on that plan.
David?
If you'll shift your thinking to the west, we're talking about the plant to the west. Obviously, the drainage is defective, and with this other plant coming online, it makes every bit of sense to, since they're adjacent, to make sure that both are working. So I just want to understand the procedure to step back now that the floodplain has changed. What is it going to take to get the drainage portion of these plants corrected So people have an understanding of what's going on.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the drainage plan now. That the drainage plan shows the existing drainage for the entire 3/4 of the north 3/4 of the property all drains to the southeast towards the pond. Only the southern quarter maybe drains south to the drainage area off-site to the south. So it's already draining away from that subdivision to the west.
the issue. You're taking that water.
But, sir, please.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I think Kurt can, that the applicant's engineer can possibly explain how they've come up with the drainage plan in and of itself.
No.
Mr. Richardson.
I think the question here is, what happened to the existing plat? The people who live on Custer on the east side of the existing plat say they're getting water in their homes. And we have a drainage plan in place that, was it properly designed to solve that? And should we be trying to address that as a part of this plat?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Mr. Miller has a comment.
I'm not sure legally how you could make an off-site property address a problem that is on somebody else's property.
Well, I don't think we can, but it's an issue that we need to discuss at some point. Is, right now the drainage plans don't have any public hearings whatsoever. We take it on faith. When the department says it's approved, it's approved. There's no public oversight, if you will, that I'm aware of anyway. And for whatever reason here, and it may be the fault of the builder, not the developer, that this house gets water in it. But so I think David's question, and mine as well, is was the drainage plan properly designed at the time for this other house? These are separate issues. I agree with you.
And I guess what I would say is there is a public process. It's the subdivision committee. People can come and speak, and we require the applicant to put up a sign. And so to that extent, there is an opportunity for people to speak, not only here, but when it goes to the governing body for ultimate, for whatever that's worth.
Ms. Miller.
Dale, I guess that brings up the question. Now, we're saying that the drainage plan for this property has been approved, but was it approved based on the assumption that the adjacent drainage plan was correct? And, how do we?
I can't answer that. Possibly the applicant's agent can explain that, but the principle that is being used is that there not be any additional runoff from this property after it's developed than there is today.
Mr. Warren.
Got, I guess, a couple questions. Number one, I don't remember having this much discussion on drainage on a zone. So are we getting off base in terms of zoning? I think that these are questions that come at a later date, so that would be number one. Number two, within the purview of looking at this as a zone change, can we put conditions upon a zone change, or is this a straight up or down, yes or no on that? That's a staff question. Can we put conditions we can approve? Can we approve a zone change with conditions?
For instance?
For instance, if I wanted to limit the areas that duplex zoning could go in effect, it would in effect create a separate plat, but we're not at the plat stage. So could I put a restriction that duplex lots would only be allowed on the east half of the proposed site that we're looking at?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I got another for instance.
Just a second.
I guess the first question is, do we have that authority to put a condition on those, or do we need to send them back for a new application?
I think we'd have to send it back for a new submission.
I believe, now let the lawyers correct me if they think it's wrong, but if you are allowed to put reasonable restrictions on the zone change through a protective overlay. They did not apply for a protective overlay, but if you think that's appropriate in order to make the zoning work, then if you decide to approve it as a condition of approval, you can require them to abide by a protective overlay that you added.
That answers my question. Thank you.
I would concur with what Dale said there.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I just said I'd concur with what Dale said.
Along those same lines for Dale and for council, one of the real issues here is the connection between these two. A connection between these two, frankly, is valuable for fire protection because there is only one way in and one way out. Could we specify that the connection stays, but it is a connection for fire purposes only? I know other places around town, we have bollards in the middle of the street that only fire can remove. One of the problems with that, we also discovered that police department don't have a key to it. That could be solved, obviously, but could that be a condition of this as well? Now, we've not heard the final plat. We could also do that at the final plat stage as well, but
To me, that would be the appropriate place is at the plat where street connections and those sorts of things are considered.
And the applicant did say they would consider that, so with everybody's permission, we would say perhaps the subdivision committee, when this comes up, would you please consider a fire-only connection between these two? But I really think you need it because you only have one way in or out. For both of these, 100 to 150 houses, you block that entrance and you got a real problem.
What do we call it? What kind of gate?
Well, they do two different things. They have a Knox lock, which can be opened by honking the horn. And they also just put a padlock on there and they just literally cut them is the two ways they've done it.
Hey, Mr. McKay had a question before he left. Probably forgot what it was.
Probably. Come back.
Okay, Mr. Blick.
Question for the agent on the plat map. Question I have is on the plat map you show on 50th Street is a connecting street that's proposed.
Yes.
You also have on 51st Street that there is a, on that plat map also, that it goes to the west also. That is on the adjacent property. So it looks like they are trying to solve some of these situations for future growth by having these streets in there. So that's what it's looking towards. To me is 51st Street. To the west, you have an opening down there also. Towards the south, all the way down on the end.
That's the adjacent property. We're the one on the
Correct.
right side of the picture.
Correct, yes. Yeah, so what
Right there.
I was just seeing is it looks like it was made that way to go and for future growth possibly. And that's the reason why the streets
Yeah,
were open the way they were open is for future growth
I'm sure that adjacent subdivision was built that way, yes.
that way. So that,
Right,
that's why I
that's
was trying to
common.
see if that was possible. And then the question I had on the plat was also, is it says Reserve A, it says 3.3 acres.
Yes.
That set for anything for flooding or a retention pond or a park or anything? Have they?
That's what it's for, is for
Okay,
detention,
I just
yes.
wanted to clarify, because
Right.
when we're talking about flooding and it goes towards the southeast, then that would be.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, yeah, all this property drains, well, like Kelly was saying, the majority of it drains to that pond area, and then the rest of it drains straight south, and we're not draining anything to the west into that existing ditch.
Okay, that's just a couple of questions. I was just observing when I seen the outlets on that new subdivision, there's just no outlets
hasn't
to the
developed
east that's gonna go into that, that mobile home park.
Right, we're not trying to tie into that. It doesn't even work well to do that with the number of units that are there and that type of thing.
Mr. McKay thought of it.
I'm very, very familiar with this area, and so that's why I was just wondering.
Sorry, I was in the middle of this discussion about what we could and couldn't do as far as zoning is concerned. Is it not possible, I'm having a little problem with 38 acres of zoned duplexes with no saying this is going to be there or this is going to be there.
Mr. Warren had asked the question,
That's the reason
could we do an overlay to limit?
You could all do a CUP, residential CUP if you wanted to.
That's what I'm thinking.
Which might be a simpler way to go about doing it than with an overlay, because then it designates what the usage of each one of these pieces of property are for.
That's what I was thinking.
Excuse me?
The CUP has a whole lot more conditions to it, like
No, I understand that.
masonry walls and stuff, that a protective overlay is just simply going to speak to the issues at hand, yeah.
This is the proper time to ask. The lady that stood up, that's the applicant, said that they'd eliminate a street. I'll just wait till she can.
I'm going to give her a chance to talk. Okay. Any other, David?
Look, I want to understand carefully, I'm studying these contours, and it looks like there's some drainage that is going to end up going southwesterly there. Now, granted, it's not going to affect that channel on the west side of the property, except, is it not adding runoff into the east-west channel, which could affect the hydraulics of that existing channel?
It already goes into that east-west channel, and we're picking up more than what goes in there right now and taking it up to the pond. So we're reducing the amount that's going to the south and making the pond bigger to accommodate the entire development, which will then basically reduce the amount that's going in at the very south side. They come together further downstream, and the majority of that water will be going out the east side and connecting further downstream. So if anything, it should help the situation of this east-west channel or the north-south channel that's there right now, and the east-west channel after the two channels come together.
I'd be curious on that drainage plan, which I believe I heard had been approved. Can you expand the study area enough to understand the impact on the channel along the west side that the neighbors are concerned about? If you were to expand your study a little bit further, would you understand how you're affecting that area that got brought into the floodplain? Just because you're really onto
Sure,
something
we
here, if
can-
you're able to reduce it.
We'll get with Joe Hickel on that, and
Okay, I think that's great.
yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can do that. That's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Now we're ready for the rebuttal. And would you also leave some time for the owner of your 3 minutes?
Well, they're part of the rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay. You come on up, we can talk about this. Because we're, like I said, we're fine with staff comments, so I think if we can go ahead and have whatever discussions you want to have on it.
Well, does she not want to talk?
Okay.
Probably too much. First, are there any more questions before I outline what we're?
Your name and address again, please.
Karen Kurtz, 6214 West Driftwood, Wichita.
Okay. Please address the committee.
Okay, really what the plan is that we aren't planning right now about putting any duplexes along this row anyway. All these are, the plan is to have all single-family houses in here and in here. The areas that we were considering putting duplexes were mainly in this area and possibly this area, right? And then, yeah, up in here. So none of, these were all gonna be on this side, on the east side. So that might answer some of your questions right there. And they're not cheap duplexes. We aren't the same owners that maybe you've dealt with before.
Let's not have a discussion back and
Sorry.
forth. Please address the committee.
Sorry.
And they can hear what you say.
My first time on this, so.
I know, just talk to us.
Okay. So, anyway, that's the current plan, and then, like I said, we have the, a lake that's gonna be going in here to most likely make things a lot better for the area. So,
Okay, we're going to have some questions for you, but anything else you want to add, Agent, before we go to questions?
no?
something.
So we're done? Okay, questions? Rob?
Do you understand what a protective overlay is? If, where you would designate a portion of your property that would be just designated for duplex units?
Kind of just say which ones we're gonna put as duplex. Are you,
You'd have to come up with a description of it.
You're thinking of, instead of describing it per lot, since this is still a preliminary plat, it would be more of a strip, so many feet wide or whatever that would be.
Right.
this part?
Basim Kirshati, on behalf of Superior Realty. What was the question?
I was asking her if she understood what a protective overlay, because the question came up, would you be agreeable to a protective overlay that would limit a certain portion of that property just to duplex units?
Right here.
Okay. Yeah, well, basically, for the mobile home on, to the east side, right over here, that's what we were thinking do the duplexes. The majority of the lots, most likely, probably over 80% will be a single families.
Thank you.
I know, the rental property could be duplexes or single family too. So, so by having a duplexes just to the east side, it doesn't mean that we're not gonna rent, to start with, I mean, this is gonna be just for sale only, but someone could buy it and, rent it out too, just like in the other neighborhood, they do have rental property, single parents could buy their kids' houses, instead of rent. So it will be the same thing. We're in the favor of blocking this street right over here if they were worried about the traffic. If we're worried about the fire truck now have the same access as a single access right now. So it doesn't make any difference if we have another property maybe. That we're in favor, but again, we're not the decision makers.
The road will have to be there. The road will be there. But they may be able to put bollards or something to block it.
Of course,
except
yeah.
for emergency
Yeah,
access,
so that
and
will
that's fine.
eliminate the traffic to the west neighborhood. The property values will be, the base price for the single family will be over $130,000. The duplexes, if we build any, which is we have some currently, they're over $200,000. They're east side, 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, 3-bedroom, 3 bathrooms, 1-car garage. They will fit on the same size lot, but they're fancy duplexes. They rent for $1,300 a piece. So not anybody can just afford that much. Yeah, it's going to have a little bit of traffic, but it will have as much traffic as a single family too.
Sir, could you state your name and address for the record?
Basim Krishati, 1109 South Rock Road, Wichita, Kansas, 67207.
Thank you. Any other questions?
My question is, you've offered to close that road, and I don't know how you could possibly do it, because then you wouldn't meet any kind of requirements for length and flood control or fire department or anything else.
I'm so sorry.
So you can't eliminate that street, in my opinion. And I'm having a tough time, again, being in this business of saying carte blanche, 38 acres of duplex property with no designated where it's gonna go or not. So if third, I'm ready to make a motion.
I was going to make a motion, but if he wants to make a motion, go ahead in a second.
Okay, we're not quite done with discussion
I
yet.
understand that, but
Mr. Daly?
Well, are you willing to say that you will only put the duplexes on a certain not portion, but certain place on that, like on the east side only? And that's what the protective overlay could point out.
Like single family.
Right, yeah. I'm willing to do
Well, I mean, we can split it right in the middle to the east side, the duplexes, west side, single families. I would say, I mean, again, single family or duplexes, it's a lot less traffic than if you have an apartment complex.
Well, that wasn't my question. My question was, are you willing, if we put a protective overlay that says they only go on the lots that back up to the mobile home park, would you be satisfied with that? And the rest of it would be designated single family only? If that's the way it's worded. I don't know if that's the way.
Well,
I think the easy way to get at this is that we ask them to submit a legal description defining what portion of it is going to be two-family housing, and because the rest of it's already single-family. Okay, we're not changing anything. That's my opinion, Mr. Warren.
I've been waiting patiently, so I've got a question for the applicant. If I were to make a motion, putting a protective overlay restricting multifamily lots to no more than 1/2 of the total land mass, and that all those multifamily lots will be located on the east half of the property, would you be acceptable to that? Okay.
Any other questions before I have a motion from Mr. Warren?
That's my motion.
He's got a motion too.
I know, but he's been telling me he wanted a motion about 15 minutes ago. Any more discussion?
And if that's a motion, I'll second it.
No, wait a minute. David?
I think the 50%'s a little bit strong. Earlier, we heard an 80-20 mix on it, but I'm a little bit concerned the 50%'s just strong.
Okay. Anybody else? I'll look to Mr. Warren to try a motion, and we can go from there.
There are a couple of things. I would talk to the commission that sometimes we get off base here and we're talking about things that are not part of zoning. We will have the opportunity to talk about drainage when we come to the plat. We will be able to talk about street access when we come to the plat. For those of you that have heard my spiel before, I live in a duplex. I've lived in duplexes more than half of my adult life. I have renters on both sides of me. And so I do not believe, matter of fact, history has proven that duplexes in and around single-family homes do not bring down the value if they are maintained properly, just like any single-family home. If it's maintained, will maintain value. If it's not maintained, then it's going to take down the value from that standpoint. I'm going to stick with, I don't know that a full 50%, matter of fact, by the time you take out for the drainage, that if you're located just to the east half of this property, then you're going to have a full street with properties on both sides. That becomes a single-family buffer. We don't know what the market is going to be. There's certainly an increased demand for multifamily housing. We've seen it by the number of requests that have come through this commission, for the last 2 or 3 years, is that is an affordable way of doing it. So trying to give as much opportunity for the developers without putting single-family homes directly up against the people that are already there. That's the condition I'm looking for. I think ultimately if you were to draw a line through half of this, you're probably looking at about a 60-40 would be the maximum that you would end up with, and I would be fine with that. So my motion will be that we approve the zone change with a protective overlay restricting multifamily lots to no more than 1/2 of the total land mass, and that all of those will be located on the east half of the property. And I think that by the time you take in the east half, that will, and the drainage that comes across that's going to put you less than 50% of the total lots. And that is my motion.
Just for clarification, it would be duplexes, not multifamily.
Duplexes, for me, that was interchangeable, so if that's proper terminology to be duplex lots, that'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Warren. Mr. Green has a second. Everybody clear on the motion?
You say, is there any way that we could possibly say, rather than say the east half, say the east, I'm going to just pick out a number, 300 feet of this property? A place that could be zoned duplexes?
I'd be curious to know the line that separates.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure that is. That's the line I've drawn. On my map, I've kind of drawn a line to essentially.
You're saying I'm going to use this street on the east? Okay, let's say the west right-of-way line on the east of that. The only problem I'm having is saying leave it.
Please do, Mr. Warren.
Right straight, that's what they want to do, just go right straight in like this.
There's the mouse, okay. I would be looking at anything east of this point, coming along here through this line right here, down across here.
Is that the street?
Whoops. Okay, how do I go back here?
The other way.
Roll the other way.
There
There you go.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, it's the back side of the lot.
Yeah, it's the backside of the lot.
Okay.
This is
I would say that no mobile homes west from this point down. These would be single family. These could be multifamily. These could be duplexes. Through this line here, through this line here, down through here. That anything in this area could be multifamily. Anything in this area would be single family.
I think you mean duplex.
Half.
It's not a final plat yet.
It's not a final plat.
Things can tweak a little bit.
I think you mean duplex, not, Mr. Warren, you mean duplex, not multifamily.
Duplexes.
Okay. Do you agree with that, Mr. Green? A discussion on the motion?
We're gonna be putting.
Looking at this map, you're talking about St. Paul Avenue and St. Paul Place?
I have a hard time reading.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Okay, so you,
Both sides of it.
so
Nothing on Chase.
I understand that, but you're saying in all those lots to the east, or if I'm holding the map like this to the top of the map. Okay, and how about in the middle between the Circle Drive deal, those duplexes too? Or just from that street east?
From that center line. So lots 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of E could be multifamily. Lots 35 through 46 of Lot A could be multifamily. Duplex, excuse me. Lots 1 through 24 of Block A. And lots 2 through 12 of Block C.
I think the easiest way would be to just designate the east 330 feet, and because
That would
the
be
flag-
another easy
the
way,
flag's
the east
gonna
300,
adjust.
yeah.
Or the
That's
gonna change, it
Yeah.
could change.
You accept that,
half, because it's
I accept that, yeah.
Mr. Green?
330 foot.
half basically says. The east half basically says that because the plat is 660 wide, so half of that
I
is
said the east
330,
half,
so
right.
east half
That's
would be.
another way of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
From a administration standpoint, I don't know how MABCD is going to issue building permits unless somehow we give them.
Building permits won't come about until we have a plat.
Yeah, but you're changing the zoning and somehow
I see.
they're going to have to figure out which lot is part of the 50% of the total mass and which part is the east half. It would be much easier to just designate an area, the east 100 feet or 150 feet or whatever it is, and that gets changed on the map and the rest of it stays single family.
I would amend my motion to the east 330 feet.
Mr. Green?
Second.
Any more discussion? Any substitute motions? No.
No, I just, since we're still in the process of finalizing the plat, there's the possibility here that a string of these lots will have dual zoning on them before the plat here is finalized. It would be nice to match those up somehow with a lot and block number, but we actually don't have a lot and block number yet. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the best we can do, frankly, is align with a measurement on it at this point.
That's what we got.
And if you have 10 feet on the back of your single family that's duplex or vice versa,
Better.
I don't think that would matter with regards to a building permit, would it? That's a question I have. Is that right? It goes by the majority zoning of the,
That's correct. The structure, if it's going to be a duplex, is going to have to be built on the portion of a lot that is zoned TF3.
okay.
Otherwise, if it's a single-family structure, it can be built in either zoning.
Okay, so if we're off by 10 feet, it's not going to mess this up.
To be
Okay,
clear,
Great, thank you.
they don't have to build duplexes here. They can build a single family here. Okay. All right. I think we're,
One other question.
one other question, Mr.
My
McKay.
motion was going to be that we defer this until the applicant comes back saying, these are the lots that we want to be duplexes. Because if you use 300 feet, and I know I said that to start with, you're in the center row lots, part of those lots are gonna be zoned duplex
That's what he said.
and single family. So my motion was gonna be to defer, put the responsibility on the developer to come back with a designated number of lots and where they're gonna be.
And that only works if we have a final plat on the entire piece. The original plan was a preliminary plat, which has been approved, and to final it in pieces as opposed to all at once. Could we final it all at once and solve this problem, Kirk?
Final plat all at once.
I can't hear.
Final plat, one big final plat, then we're stuck. You know, if we do it in pieces, we could, but you get down to here, and all of a sudden you want bigger lots, and we've already made a final plat out of it.
I see.
That's the problem you run into when you do it all as one big.
Okay.
Do you want to do it all final?
No,
And
you
then
don't. I think you want a little bit of flexibility for bigger lots.
So that's what we need to approve it all as whole. And can we call the lots?
I'm going to shortcut this. We have a motion and a second. We're going to vote on the motion.
Would you restate the motion?
Protective overlay restricting duplex lots to the east 330 foot of the property.
It really should be a zone change. We're
Zone
going to
change.
drop the protective overlay. It's just only the portion that's being rezoned is the east 330 feet.
That's my motion.
Okay. Mr. Green, you agree with that?
I agree.
Okay.
Applicant has a question.
Applicant.
We need to say that it's going to be TF3 on the east 330 and SF5 on the west.
Oh, it's already zoned.
Yeah,
It's not zoned SF5.
the SS5 zoning would occur at the time of annexation.
It would automatically become SF5 at annexation? Okay, that's fine then.
Thank you. Mr. Knable. All right, we have a motion, we have a second, and we're going to vote on it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Who are the opposition? Okay, Mr. McKay and Mr. Blick. So it's 10-0. All right. That ends the portion of our public hearings. We now have a non-public hearing item, case number ER
Mr. Chairman, I
217,
have to leave.
quadruple 05. The city of Derby seeks unilateral annexation of a tract located in the Piper Lane addition adjacent to the city of Derby.
I'm going to find out. Got a staff question. Since I sit on the city council for the city of Derby, is that considered a conflict of interest on this issue?
I think that would probably be appropriate to abstain.
I will recuse myself.
You can leave if you want to.
We still have item 10.
I think I'd leave. Okay, let's go ahead with staff presentation.
Okay, Matt Williams, Associate Planner. This is DER 2017, number 5. The City of Derby is seeking unilateral annexation of tracts located in the Piper Lane additions adjacent to the City of Derby. After review by staff, it's been determined that all tracts proposed for unilateral annexation fall within the City of Derby's 2035 urban growth area as designated in the Community Investments Plan. All annexation properties also fall within Derby's near-term growth area as identified in the City of Derby's Comprehensive Growth Plan. So staff recommends that the MAPC find the unilateral annexation to be consistent with the Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan.
Any questions for
So
staff?
that's, excuse me. So that's what you're asking, which was not clear in our agenda, was to say that it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan.
Correct. To find that it is.
There's a lot of detail in here, but that's really not for us.
Right, to find that this
Taxation, water
annexation is
lines,
consistent
yeah,
with the comprehensive
taxation,
plan.
water lines, all that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about, is this in line with the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
That's all we're asking for.
The
Okay.
only thing that's at question is whether you believe the annexation is consistent with the adopted plan.
Okay.
And I might comment, in the past, 5 years ago or so, we did not provide the service extension plan to the planning commission that had all of that detail. Planning commission asked that we provide that detail, so that's why you have it.
Yeah, I appreciate the detail. I just didn't know what level we were supposed to approve it.
Any other questions for
I've got a
staff?
question, for staff. Wasn't this what was considered in the last meeting? Is this the same two pieces of property that was considered by the county commission?
It is the same two pieces of property. The county commission's review is a review of the actual service plan, and really reviewing those details that we were just talking about, the sufficiency of the plan itself in line with a different statute than what the planning commission's looking at today.
Okay, I wondered why it was the
So
same.
same
and they
property,
already
different
passed
review.
it. So, okay.
Okay, we have any other questions? Anybody want Mr. Warren to come forward to ask him some questions? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Mr. Foster.
Let's make a quick comment. I think the city of Derby has done a very good job here of providing what's required by the statute in terms of a plan for this. So I would commend them on that effort.
I would like to too, because when I was on Valley Centers, they had a miserable plan put out there, just a sheet and a half or something like that. And it was commented by the county commission that that wasn't a very good. It was legal at that time, but it wasn't good. This is a very good
Would that be appropriate?
presentation.
Would it be appropriate to put that in the motion? In the motion, Mr. Green.
I move that we take the recommended action as printed on the sheet.
Do you want to comment about how good it is?
And it's been a wonderful plan.
Second.
We have a second here by Mr. Richardson. Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Let's talk about this planning conference for a minute, could you?
10-0. Oh, 10-0-1. Sorry.
The permission of the board, I'll pass on the good comments to the city staff for the job they've done on their
We would like for
Whoever
you.
worked on
plan.
that did a real good job compared what's, that needs to be
What is all
shown
you,
to other
Mr. Warren,
cities and say,
Yeah.
duplicate this.
Okay, what, do you have a question, Mr. Richardson?
Well, I think there's some information here about a planning conference that's coming up, and didn't say where it was, and looks like an option for an afternoon session. I don't know, where do we find those options should we choose to be there for the day?
I can address that.
Okay.
The information that you have regarding this planning conference, it's on Friday, October 20th. It is in city of Salina. And the planning department has a sufficient budget to send a few of the planning commissioners to this if they would like. The afternoon session, the whole day session runs until, I think, 4:30. The morning session specifically geared to the planning commissioners runs from 8:30 to 11:45.
Do I have anybody on the commission that would like to
And you don't have to
represent us?
decide today. I do need to know by the next meeting.
Yeah, I would consider it. I need to,
Mr. Newell?
yeah.
Mr. Richardson? Anybody else?
Anybody have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact me and we can discuss it.
At least those two, and maybe somebody else will consider it between now and the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
we're adjourned.